Why does the most profound, undeniable praise you'll ever receive usually come from the person who absolutely despises you the most?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Right. I mean, think about that for a second. We spend our whole lives seeking validation from our friends, our mentors, our supporters. But when you get a genuine compliment from someone who fundamentally roots against you, the whole weight of that statement just completely changes.
Yeah, it carries a totally different psychological signature. I mean, praise from a friend is, well, it's expected, right? It's just part of the social contract.
Exactly.
But praise from an enemy, that's a concession. It means your achievement was so massive, so undeniable, that it literally broke through their cognitive bias against you.
And that exact dynamic is what we are looking at today. So welcome to this deep dive. Our source material today is this short but incredibly dense excerpt titled Victory.
Yeah, from that piece called The Secret Alchemy of Arsenal's Return to Glory.
Right, exactly. And it's about the soccer club Arsenal winning the Barclays Premier League after this grueling 22-year drought. But to be clear to you listening, our mission today isn't to recount sports statistics. We don't need to get into the weeds of soccer trivia.
No, not at all.
We're going to use this specific text to answer a much bigger question. Like, how does the human brain process the success of a bitter rival? We're looking at the psychology of comparison, the hidden mechanics of elite success, and, how we manufacture motivation when we feel completely overshadowed.
That framing is essential, honestly, because if you just read this as a casual sports recap, you totally miss the actual mechanism at play.
Oh, 100%.
This text is really a real-time psychological case study. It was written by a fan of Chelsea Football Club, which is Arsenal's direct historic rival.
Bitter rivals.
Right. So we are watching someone try to mentally digest an event that their brain is actively wired to reject.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because in the very first sentence, the author establishes the baseline. They write, before anything, this is coming from a Chelsea fan who absolutely despises everything to do with Arsenal.
They just put it all out there.
Right on the table. They lay their bias bare. But then they immediately follow it by admitting that Arsenal has earned their place among the elite. It's a fascinating rhetorical move, honestly.
What's fascinating here is how that hostility functions as a credibility mechanism. I mean, in legal terms, there's this concept called a declaration against interest.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so the idea is that a statement is far more likely to be true if it actively harms the person saying it. Psychologically, this Chelsea fan is making a declaration against their own emotional interest.
It's like reading the diary of a captured enemy general, right?
Exactly. Because it's not some sanitized PR statement from a corporate account, the admission feels entirely authentic. It's objective reality forcing its way through a literal wall of hatred.
Yeah, and the author doesn't just give a generic, hey, good job, either. They actually break down the infrastructure of what it took to break a 22-year championship drought.
They get remarkably systemic with it.
They really do. They write that this victory is the sum total of the fans, the players, the staff, their family, and the management as well. It's just such a comprehensive view of success.
It is, and it counters a very common cognitive bias we all have when looking at high achievers. We typically fall for the fundamental attribution error.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, it's when we attribute success entirely to the individual talent of the person holding the trophy or, getting the promotion. We just ignore the environment completely.
Oh, right. We just see the winner.
Exactly. But this author recognizes that elite success requires an entire ecosystem. The players are just the visible tip of the spear. The staff managing the logistics, the fans providing the psychological momentum, the families absorbing the inevitable emotional collateral damage, all of it.
Yeah, that entire structure has to be mobilized to win at the highest level. I sort of see it like looking at the load-bearing walls in a skyscraper.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Usually we only stare at the shiny glass exterior and marvel at how tall the building is.
Yeah.
But this rival is pointing out the concrete foundation and the steel beams hidden inside, just acknowledging that the glass would shatter without them.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
But the author's tone shifts pretty quickly when they start describing how that building was actually constructed.
Oh, yeah. The romanticism just vanishes.
They strip away all the fairy tale shine of a championship season very abruptly.
They really do. They drop this incredibly blunt line where they say, many would say they have won it dirty, true.
Yeah.
And then they followed up by saying, but winning in anything always has casualties, known and unknown. And here's where it gets really interesting. I have to push back on this framing just a bit.
Okay, go for it.
Calling a historic championship a dirty win with casualties sounds exactly like classic sour grapes to me. I mean, it sounds like a sore loser trying to put a permanent asterisk on someone else's trophy just to make themselves feel better.
That's fair.
So why should we, or the listener, view this as a profound truth about success rather than just a bitter defense mechanism?
Look, that is a very fair skepticism. It absolutely serves as a coping mechanism for the author, sure. But that doesn't mean the observation is scientifically or historically wrong.
Okay.
In fact, it touches on a crucial concept called survivorship bias. Whenever we look at a champion in sports, in business, in art, we only ever see the final polished result.
Right, we just see the gold medal.
We don't see the wreckage left behind. So the author's use of the word dirty isn't necessarily about cheating. It's more an acknowledgement of friction.
Friction meaning like the actual cost of operating at that level of intensity.
Precisely. Any hyper-competitive environment operates as a battle of attrition. The known casualties are the things we can easily quantify.
Like what?
In sports, it's torn ligaments, concussions, or aging players aggressively traded away. In the corporate world, it's the burned-out employees or the capital lost on failed prototypes. Those are the knowns.
It's the spreadsheet data, everything you can track.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But the unknown casualties are the psychological and social costs that never make it to the public record.
Oh, man.
It's the strained marriages of the coaching staff who slept in their offices for 6 months. It's the mental health toll on the players who were ruthlessly cut from the roster to make room for a marginal upgrade in talent.
Wow. Yeah.
Achieving greatness in a zero-sum system requires a level of selfishness and collateral damage that we rarely like to talk about. The author is simply pointing out that perfection is a total myth.
Right.
To climb to the top, you have to get your hands dirty and accept that those casualties are a mandatory tax on elite ambition.
That makes a lot of sense. It strips away the fairy tale narrative of success and replaces it with a realistic ledger of what ambition actually costs.
Yeah.
But right after making this cold, calculating observation, the text completely pivots again. The author stops analyzing Arsenal and suddenly turns the camera inward.
Yeah, the tone shift is jarring.
The emotional tone just drops off a cliff here.
The analytical armor falls completely apart, and we get a glimpse of the raw psychological toll this rivalry is actually taking on them.
The author writes, "Seeing someone winning while you're losing literally is one of the worst feelings ever."
Oof.
Right, and they describe this crushing emptiness, stating bluntly that watching a rival win makes everything you're doing seem worthless. I really want to pause on that word. Worthless.
It's a heavy word.
It is. It's one thing to feel disappointed, but to feel like your own life has suddenly lost its value because someone else won a soccer game? That seems like an extreme cognitive short circuit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it perfectly illustrates a psychological framework known as relative deprivation theory.
Relative deprivation theory.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Human beings do not evaluate their well-being in absolute terms. We evaluate it relative to our peer group or our perceived rivals.
So it's not about how much you have, it's about how much you have compared to the person sitting next to you.
Exactly. And this is deeply rooted in evolutionary psychology. For early humans living in small tribes, status was literally a matter of survival.
Because it dictated who got what, right?
Exactly. If a rival gained more status, it meant they had first access to food, resources, and mates. Your brain evolved to view social hierarchy as a zero-sum game.
Wow.
So when the author watches Arsenal succeed, their brain doesn't just say, oh, good for them. Their primitive threat detection system flashes red and says their rise in status is a direct threat to your survival.
And that is the mechanism causing that profound feeling of worthlessness.
That's the one.
That makes perfect sense. It's like placing a calibration weight on a scale. Your mass didn't change at all. Your life is exactly the same today as it was yesterday. But because someone else placed a massive weight on their side of the scale, your relative measurement is completely thrown off.
That's a perfect way to visualize it.
And we all have that arsenal in our lives, whether we care about sports or not. I mean, it might be a coworker getting the promotion you've been working toward, or a neighbor rolling up in the exact car you've been saving for.
Oh, absolutely.
Their success doesn't actually take money out of your bank account, but it temporarily bankrupts your sense of progress.
That calibration weight analogy is spot on. And the real danger of relative deprivation is that it paralyzes you.
Because you just give up.
Yeah. If someone else's external success makes your internal effort feel worthless, why would you keep trying? This is the darkest point of the author's psychological journey in the text. They're totally stuck in that evolutionary trap.
But they don't stay there. And this is where the excerpt shifts from a confession of despair into a really fascinating manual for self-motivation.
The pivot here is brilliant.
How do they break out of that zero-sum evolutionary trap? They do it by completely changing the audience they're performing for.
They recognize that relying on external metrics for self-worth is a losing game, so they internalize the metric.
Right. The author writes about the self-reminders they use to survive this feeling of worthlessness. They ask themselves, do you give in when no one notices what you're doing, or do you work your way up?
Yeah.
They mandate themselves to put your best foot forward even when you least feel like doing so. And then they drop the core insight of the whole piece.
The ultimate secret.
Yes. They write, the only secret is to keep working even when no one's watching. Actually, the most important person is watching, you, and we judge ourselves more than anyone. And they finish with this direct plea to the reader. So why don't you do me a favor and never give up on yourself?
This raises an important question about the neurochemistry of motivation. What the author is doing here is manually shifting from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, extrinsic motivation is driven by external rewards trophies, public praise, seeing your rival lose. The problem with extrinsic motivation is that you are outsourcing your dopamine to things you cannot control.
Outsourcing your dopamine. Wow.
You can't control if Arsenal wins the league.
Right. So if your happiness depends on Arsenal losing and they win, your brain cuts off the dopamine supply and you feel worthless.
Precisely. By deciding that the most important person watching is you, the author regains control of their reward system. They create an internal feedback loop.
Because you can't lie to yourself.
No, you cannot lie to your own reflection. You know if you put your best foot forward today. You know if you skipped a workout or cut corners on a project.
Yeah, you always know.
When surviving the judgment of your own reflection becomes your primary goal, a rival's success loses its power to devastate you. Your scale is no longer calibrated by their weight. It's calibrated by your own daily effort.
So what does this all mean? How do we take this incredibly intense sports diary and apply it?
It's universally applicable, really.
Because this translates directly to, like, grinding through an endless stack of research for a Monday morning meeting, or trying to master a new skill in your garage at 5 a.m. when the rest of the neighborhood is asleep.
Absolutely.
The author is arguing that the anonymity of those moments isn't a punishment, it's the actual test.
It is the only true test.
Right.
High-performance psychologists often say that discipline is what you do when the camera's off.
Right.
The author is realizing that while they were agonizing over the cameras flashing for Arsenal, their own character was being forged in the dark.
I buy that. The logic is sound. But I do wonder if it's actually sustainable. Can you permanently bypass millions of years of evolutionary programming just by telling yourself to focus inward?
That's the real challenge.
Because the author seems to reach this serene, almost zen-like state of self-acceptance. And then we hit the final sentences of the excerpt.
The psychological reset. It is a phenomenal shift in tone.
It is the definition of thematic whiplash.
Oh, totally.
After this deep introspective meditation on intrinsic motivation and never giving up on yourself, the author signs off with this. Congratulations, Arsenal, you are champions. Looking forward to our next battles for the Kingship of London. Have a blast. This might be your last.
The fangs come right back out.
They immediately revert to tribal warfare. It's like reading a beautifully composed, heartfelt letter exploring the deepest vulnerabilities of the human soul, and the postscript is just, meet me in the parking lot, we're fighting.
It really is.
It completely shatters that zen-like peace we were just talking about.
It does shatter the peace, but psychologically, it is the healthiest possible ending to this text.
Wait, how is threatening a rival healthy?
Because it proves that the internal recalibration actually worked.
Oh.
Think about the sequence of events. The author started in a state of cognitive dissonance, hating a rival but being forced to respect their undeniable success. That external reality crushed their ego and made them feel worthless. To survive that, they had to retreat inward, rebuild their sense of worth based entirely on their own hidden efforts, and decouple their value from the rival's trophy.
Right, they patched the hole in the ship.
They patched the hole. And because the ship is no longer sinking, they can sail right back into the battle.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Saying, this might be your last, isn't just petty trash talk. It's an assertion that their ego has recovered enough to withstand competition again.
Wow.
If they truly felt worthless, they would have just walked away from the sport entirely. The fact that they are immediately declaring war for the kingship of London shows that they have successfully digested the trauma of the loss.
That is fascinating.
The intrinsic motivation they just preached about is already providing the fuel to re-engage with the external world.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The philosophical reflection wasn't a permanent exit from the rivalry, it was just a pit stop to refuel the engine. And that brings us to the end of our analysis for today. To recap the ground we've covered, we took a short, hostile excerpt from The Secret Alchemy of Arsenal's Return to Glory and used it to map the mechanics of human comparison.
We covered a lot of ground.
We looked at why hostile praise carries the most credibility. We explored the survivorship bias hiding the dirty casualties of elite success. We broke down the evolutionary zero-sum trap of relative deprivation theory, why someone else's win feels like a literal threat to your survival.
Yeah.
And finally, we unpacked the mechanism of intrinsic motivation, taking back control of your dopamine by making your own reflection the only judge that matters.
It's a powerful reminder that our reactions to a rival's success can teach us far more about our own psychological wiring than they do about the rival.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. We love pulling apart these sources and finding the hidden psychological gears turning beneath the surface.
It's always a pleasure to unpack these mechanics.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. We spent the second half of this deep dive discussing how the author found peace through internal accountability. They realized they had to keep working when no one was watching, and that the ultimate judge is the self.
Right.
But here's the paradox. This profound journey of self-discovery was triggered entirely because they were forced to watch a despised rival succeed.
Yep.
Without Arsenal's victory, this Chelsea fan never writes this manifesto. So the question is, if our most important audience is truly just the person in the mirror, do we actually need external rivals to push us to elite greatness? Or is the fiercest, most consequential championship the one fought entirely inside an empty room? Think about it. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.